Imagine a plant that produces 3 to 5 times more than potatoes grows without added nitrogen and develops normally in dry soil. Now imagine that plant being deliberately ignored by modern agriculture not because it fails, but because it refuses to depend on chemicals. A recent global agronomic survey on resilient crops for climate-stressed regions revealed a brutal truth. While industrial staples collapse without fertilizer and irrigation, this so-called superfood keeps pushing calories out of dead ground like a quiet rebellion. No glossy marketing, no billion-dollar input chain, just a plant that thrives where farming is supposed to be impossible, forcing us to ask an uncomfortable question about what food security really means. That is Jerusalem artichoke, a plant discovered by Native American tribes. The lie we've been sold is simple. If the soil is dead, the crop must die with it. If the rain stops, the harvest starves. If the fertilizer truck doesn't arrive, civilization collapses. That lie has a body count. Because out there, right now, under blistering sun and suffocating clay, a plant is thriving without permission. No chemicals, no irrigation, no mercy. It was hidden, mocked, forgotten, not because it failed, but because it refused to kneel. This plant fed people when empires cracked. It kept families alive when supply chains were bombed into dust. And today, while modern agriculture panics, it waits in silence. Jerusalem artichoke, Helianthus tuberosus, the forgotten desert superfood that humiliates potatoes without fertilizer. Industrial agriculture wants you to believe abundance only comes from inputs, nitrogen bags, phosphorus mines, potassium salts ripped from the earth like open veins. Potatoes, cassava, sweet potatoes. High-yield divas. Shallow-rooted, addicted, weak without constant feeding. Jerusalem artichoke doesn't play that game. Under the hood, this plant runs a different engine, a brutal one. Its roots don't skim the surface like potatoes begging for scraps. They drive downward, aggressive, exploratory, mining water and minerals long after other crops tap out. The tubers swell underground like clenched fists even when the soil is stripped bare. Inside those tubers is the real secret. Inulin, a long-chain fructan. Not starch, not sugar. Inulin is a storage carbohydrate that plants use when survival matters more than speed. For humans, it means low glycemic impact. For gut bacteria, it's a feast. For diabetics, it's stability instead of spikes. Potatoes store starch, fast energy, fast rot, fast blood sugar chaos. Jerusalem artichoke stores resilience. Cut one open. The flesh is ivory white, dense, almost glassy. It doesn't crumble like a potato. It snaps. Juicy. Alive. Saturated with soluble fiber instead of empty calories. This isn't a tuber bred for French fries. This is a tuber bred for survival. And the numbers don't lie. On degraded, nutrient-poor land, Jerusalem artichoke can produce 3 to 5 times the yield per hectare compared to potatoes grown under the same punishment. Not because it's magic, because it's honest. It evolved for stress, not comfort. Potatoes collapse without nitrogen. Cassava sulks without phosphorus. Sweet potatoes demand water like spoiled royalty. Jerusalem artichoke shrugs and keeps growing. That's why it mattered to the people who came before us. Long before fertilizers, before tractors, before global logistics, Native American nations cultivated Jerusalem artichoke as a strategic crop, not a luxury, a backup plan. A calorie bank buried underground, safe from fire frost and theft. When corn failed, when hunting dried up, when winters turned violent, it was food security in root form. When Europeans arrived, they took it back across the Atlantic, and it worked. In France, in Italy, across cold, exhausted soils where wheat struggled. During famines and wars, when fields were trampled and supply lines shattered, Jerusalem artichoke kept producing. You didn't need barns. You didn't need storage. You left it in the ground and it waited. Then potatoes arrived. Easy to harvest, easy to transport, easy to standardize, easy to own. Jerusalem artichoke didn't disappear because it failed farmers. It disappeared because it failed industry. It refused uniformity. Tubers grew knobby and wild, shapes too ugly for supermarket bins, skins too thin for months-long storage. It didn't tolerate being stacked, shipped, sprayed, and forgotten. It demanded to be eaten fresh or grown locally. That was its crime. Modern agriculture doesn't reward crops that survive without help. It rewards crops that require help. Fertilizers, pesticides, irrigation systems, entire industries built around solving problems that resilient plants never had. So the system doubled down on the divas and buried the tanks. Fast forward to now, soil stripped of life, water tables collapsing, fertilizer prices exploding, climate patterns breaking historical memory. And suddenly the industrial supply chain looks fragile, panicked, loud. Meanwhile, Jerusalem Artichoke keeps doing what it has always done, growing without permission. Let's talk cultivation, because this is where the lie fully collapses. Potatoes demand precision, loose soil, constant feeding, disease control, blight paranoia. Miss one step and the harvest bleeds out. Cassava needs heat, moisture, and time. Sweet potatoes need warmth, fertility, and patience. All of them punish mistakes. Jerusalem Artichoke does the opposite. Plant it once, and it tries to take over your life. It tolerates drought because its roots go deep. It tolerates poor soil because it doesn't depend on shallow nutrients. It shrugs off pests because it evolved alongside them, not inside a chemical bubble. It survives frost. It laughs at heat. It regrows if cut down. This is not a polite plant. Have you ever planted something that refused to die? Have you ever watched a crop outperform everything else in your garden while you ignored it completely? That feeling of disbelief is where the system starts to crack. But there's a warning, a real one. Jerusalem Artichoke spreads aggressively. If you plant it, you commit. It's not invasive because it's evil. It's invasive because it's good at living. Contain it, respect it, don't underestimate it. Plant tubers, not seeds. Seeds are lies. Tubers are truth. Plant them shallow. Full sun. Poor soil is fine. Overfeeding just makes tall stalks and fewer tubers. Neglect is a feature, not a bug. Harvest after frost if you want sweetness. Cold converts inulin into fructose. The flavor shifts. Nutty, earthy, slightly honeyed, like a root vegetable that remembers sunlight. Raw, it's crisp, almost apple-like. Cooked, it melts into something between potato and artichoke heart with a mineral depth potatoes never had. It tastes like survival, not indulgence, so why can't you buy it everywhere? Because it doesn't fit the machine. Thin skin means it bruises. Knobby shapes mean it won't stack. Short shelf life means it won't sit in warehouses while profits ferment. You can't ship it halfway across the planet and still pretend it's fresh. That's not a flaw, that's a filter. The industry can't own this crop, so they ignore it. And that means it's yours. This is the pattern, again and again. Crops that thrive without chemicals get erased. Crops that need saving get subsidies. The more dependent the plant, the more valuable it becomes to those selling the solution. Jerusalem Artichoke refuses dependency. It doesn't sell fertilizer. It doesn't sell pesticides. It doesn't sell patents. It sells calories, fiber, resilience, and that's dangerous. Because food security doesn't come from innovation alone. It comes from remembering what already works when everything else fails. Jerusalem Artichoke is not a miracle. It's a reminder that the future of food isn't always forward. Sometimes it's buried, waiting for us to dig it back up. Grow it where potatoes fail. Grow it where the soil is tired. Grow it where water is scarce. Let the divas collapse under their own demands. This plant doesn't need saving. It needs reintroduction. Grow what they hid from you.